The game of chess has been around for over 1,500 years. And during those years, people have studied chess and have learned different principles or different ideas to help players become better at chess. Today, we're going to talk about the opening, which is the first 10 to 15 moves of a chess game. And by following these basic principles, you will become a better chess player. The best way to start a chess game is by moving one of the pawns. These are called central pawns, the ones on D and E, moving one of them up 2 squares. I teach beginning chess players to move up the E pawn 2 squares. The reason why it's important, or the reason why moving that pawn up 2 squares is a good idea, is that it opens up lanes for the bishop and for the queen. And so right away after one move, 2 of the most powerful pieces on the board can get out into the game. In fact, if you remember from a couple of lessons before, we had talked about the matrix, which is a 4-move checkmate that will win a game. Again, this is the best way to start. And the matrix is okay if you're playing beginners or chess players who aren't too serious, because a lot of them won't know how to stop the matrix. But if you play a chess player who is good at chess and has studied chess and knows how to play, then sometimes the matrix isn't such a good idea. So I encourage chess players on their second move to take their G knight, which is the one on the right hand side, move it up 2 squares and then over 1. This is a good move because it develops one of the stronger pieces on the back rank of the board. And also, by putting the knight on this square, it helps to control the 4 squares in the center. And part of what you want to do when you start a chess game is to try to put as much control on these central 4 squares as possible. A third good move for the opening in chess is to move the bishop. We'll move the bishop right there. And this setup is called the Guaco piano. And I wouldn't expect anybody to remember that name, but just this sequence of 3 moves at the beginning of a chess game is called the Guaco piano, and it's an opening that's been studied in chess for years and years and years. Now, a good 4th move is called castling, and the way you castle is you take the king and you move it over 2 squares, and then take the rook on the other side and put it on the other side of the king. And that is a legal move. It's the only time in chess that the king can be moved 2 squares. So again, if the knight and the bishop in between the king and the rook are moved, and if the king or the rook has not been moved, then you can move the king over 2 squares and then move the rook next to it. And that protects the king and makes a nice little fortress for the king to hide in. Another good move in the opening is to move the knight right here. And again, it doesn't really matter when you make these moves as long as they're all done in the first 10 to 15 moves of a chess game. And again, this knight here, which is on the left side, it's called the B knight, is now controlling the center as well. So you can see we've got a bishop controlling this square, a knight controlling this square and this square, another knight controlling this square and this square. This pawn is controlling this square right here. Another good idea for the opening is to move the D pawn up. And for this lesson, we're just going to move the D pawn up here. And by moving it there, it frees up the other bishop to now be able to move and to get into the chess game. Another good move, it's called a developing move, is to move the rook over 1 square. And this lines up the rook with the king, which could be important in the game later on. You'll have to make sure that you get the queen off of the back eventually. And then eventually move the other rook. Now, the reason why these kinds of openings, or these ideas to do in the opening of a chess game, is a good idea is because it gets the most powerful pieces on the chessboard into the game. The pawns are weak pieces. They're only worth 1 point, and they can only do so much. But pieces like the knights or the bishops, which are worth 3 points, are a little bit stronger. Pieces like the rooks, which are worth 5 points, are even stronger. And a piece like the queen is the strongest piece of all. And by getting those strong pieces into the battlefield, it will increase your chances of winning the chess game.